My father passed away 2 weeks ago. After the funeral, while sorting through his belongings, I found his wallet. Tucked beside his ID and a faded photo of my mom was a single old brass key. It looked important, worn smooth from years of being carried. But here's the strange part. In all my life I had never seen him use it. It didn't open any door in our house, no drawer, no lockbox, nothing. My father wasn't a sentimental man. He was practical, a man of few words who believed in fixing things and paying bills on time. He didn't keep things without a reason. So why did he carry a key for over 30 years that seemingly opened nothing? The question started to haunt me. Grief does strange things to your mind, but this felt different. It felt like a loose thread on a sweater, begging to be pulled. I tried to put it out of my mind, telling myself it was nothing. But the image of that key, sitting so purposefully in his wallet, wouldn't leave me alone. What kind of secret does a man keep so close yet never allow himself to open? And why would he carry it with him until the very end? It was a silent testament to something, but I had no idea what. The funeral came and went. The house, once filled with the quiet, steady presence of my father, was now just empty. The silence was heavier than the grief itself. It was in that quiet that I finally decided to do something I had avoided my entire life. I went through his things. It wasn't about being nosy. It was a desperate need to understand the man I had lived with but never truly known. He was a man who showed love through action, not words. We never talked about the things that really mattered, the deep down stuff. Maybe, just maybe, I could find a piece of him in the objects he left behind. His closet was full of work clothes, worn and patched. His tool shed was meticulously organized. Everything had a purpose, a place. Everything except that key. I opened his wallet last. It felt like the most personal item, the closest thing to his heart. Inside were the usual things. A little cash, receipts for gas and groceries, and that faded photo of my mother, tucked into a cracked plastic sleeve. And there it was, the key. It felt heavy in my hand, heavier than its small size should allow. It was a simple key, brass and smooth, with no label or tag to give away its origin. I went through the house, trying it on every lock I could find, old chests, the back door, his filing cabinet. Nothing. It fit nowhere. I even called my aunt, his sister. I asked if she recognized it. She just shook her head, a sad look in her eyes. I tried my uncle, his brother. He got quiet and changed the subject. That's when I knew the key wasn't just forgotten. It was actively avoided. It was a secret everyone seemed to know about, but no one wanted to talk about. The mystery was getting deeper, and I was starting to feel a knot of unease tighten in my stomach. I almost gave up. I put the wallet away, thinking some secrets are meant to stay buried. But as I was closing it, my fingers brushed against something stiff hidden in the lining. I pulled it out. It was a single receipt, folded into a tiny, tight square. The paper was old and fragile. I carefully unfolded it. It was for a monthly payment to a storage facility across town. And then I saw the date on the first payment. It was from 32 years ago. 32 years. Every single month, like clockwork, he had paid for this storage unit. Without fail. Suddenly, my heart started pounding. This had to be it. This had to be where the key belonged. The next morning, I drove to the address on the receipt. The storage facility was one of those anonymous, gray buildings you drive past 100 times without ever really noticing. It was the kind of place people use to store the parts of their lives they aren't ready to face, or the parts they've had to leave behind. The air was still and quiet. I found the unit number and stood in front of the cold metal door. My hand was shaking as I held up the key. I slid it into the lock. It turned with a satisfying, solid click. The lock sprang open. I rolled up the heavy door and a cloud of dusty air met me. The unit was small, with bare concrete floors. It was filled with boxes, neatly stacked and carefully labeled with dates and names. Some of the names I recognized: family members, old friends. Others were strangers. I opened one box and found letters my father had written but never sent. Another held sketches, beautifully drawn on yellowed paper. There were photos of places we'd never been to, blueprints for buildings I'd never seen. It was the evidence of a whole other life. A life he wanted, but for some reason, never chose. It was like stepping into the ghost of a man I never knew. At the very back of the unit, almost hidden behind the stacks of boxes, was a simple wooden door. It looked like it belonged in a house, not a concrete storage unit. And on the door was a lock. A lock that looked exactly like it would fit the old brass key. My heart was in my throat. This was it, the final piece of the puzzle. I walked to the door. the key feeling impossibly heavy in my hand again. I put it in the lock. It fit perfectly. I turned the key, and the door swung open. Inside was a small room, no bigger than a bedroom. There was a desk, a lamp, and a drafting table. The walls were covered in sketches and blueprints, all meticulously measured and precise. My father had wanted to be an architect. I stared at the drawings, his handwriting neat and confident in the margins. I remembered him coming home from his construction job, his hands rough and calloused, his knuckles often scraped and bruised. He worked long, hard days to provide for us, to make sure we never had to worry. He had given up this dream, this entire room full of potential, for us. On the desk, there was a single leather-bound notebook. I opened it. The first page was dated with the year I was born. My father had written about his dreams of designing buildings that would touch the sky. But every entry, for 32 years, ended with the exact same sentence. Tomorrow, I will begin. As I flipped through the pages, I could see his handwriting change over the years. It grew slower, a little more tired, the ink a little faded. But that sentence never changed. Tomorrow I will begin. Tomorrow just never came. I sat on the dusty floor of that room for what felt like hours, surrounded by the ghosts of my father's sacrificed dreams. I felt a confusing storm of emotions. I was angry that he never told us, sad for the life he gave up, but overwhelmingly I was grateful. So deeply grateful, he never blamed us. He never showed an ounce of resentment. He never complained about his long hours or his aching back. He simply made a choice. He chose responsibility over regret. And he silently carried the cost of that choice with him every single day. That key in his wallet wasn't a reminder of a door he couldn't open. It was a reminder of a door he chose to keep closed for his family. Before I left, I closed the wooden door and locked it again. Not to hide his secret, but to honor it. To preserve this sacred space that held the soul of the man he was and the man he could have been. Some dreams aren't abandoned. They're sacrificed. They're carefully packed away so that other people's dreams can have a chance to grow. He gave up his blueprints so he could build a life for us. That key sits on my desk now. It's no longer a mystery. It's a reminder. Not of what my father lost, but of everything he gave. It reminds me that the quietest lives often carry the heaviest burdens and the greatest love. If this story made you think about the quiet sacrifices people make for the ones they love, follow for more stories like this. Some lives aren't loud, but they matter more than we'll ever know. Thanks for listening.